All right, we are live. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
July 2nd. July 2nd. Welcome to July, everybody.
Well, we decided to make a switch on our coaching call this week because last week's was very popular. We got a lot of comments about it. We were talking about AI, so that's always popular. But in specifics, I think last week's really gave us, I don't know, kind of a broader view of things that we need to talk about. What do you think, Tom? What
Yeah,
was your
and
reaction to it?
well, it certainly it told us people are interested in the general topic of AI, but more importantly, you and I discussed afterward, you know, there are the things that, are catchy and get people's attention about AI, and there are things that overwhelm people about AI, and then there's some real practical applications and things people need to know, tips and things like that. And
Well,
that's
and
really where we landed is that we need to be sharing with our community practical application and tips with regard to AI. And really, that led us to what we're talking about today. That's sort of a
amongst many we
result.
planned,
But
right?
yeah, there are many topics coming, but this topic is really today talking about one aspect of AI you may not realize that may have negative consequences for your podcast and how to deal with it. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for today's topic and
Yeah, and so I guess that's really what Tom and I were saying is like we hear from, and I just talked to someone who I consider to be like a really good tech guy. Like he's really knowledgeable. He's been in tech and media for a long time, and he's like, I'm done. Like I'm done following and trying to figure out what's going on in AI. It matters nothing to me if it's not in my workflow or in my application. And so this is in a workflow application and it has a net result for you. So that's why we've chosen this. So we've chosen topics throughout the rest of this year when we're going to hit them as many as we can. And but we're really going to be talking about applied AI. And that means like how you might use AI or how AI is using you. Like it could be either way, right?
yes, I really do. That's a really good way to put it. How you can use AI or it can use you.
Yeah. So
There's
this is
a
the
headline.
longest, yeah, this is the longest intro to feature brand we've ever done before. And so but we are here every week live to try to help with these workflow, application, how you're using your podcast, how you're marketing your podcast, how you're promoting your podcast. That's what Feed Your Brand here is for. So if we don't cover these topics, who will?
And so that brings us to today's topic, which is mandatory video caption editing. Now, what does that mean, mandatory?
I hate to say the word mandatory. You know I hate it, Tom. I never say something is mandatory.
Nobody wants to hear the word mandatory. It makes them feel like, they're gonna have to go get a root canal at the dentist or something, I mean,
Right. I'm
or
all about exception.
you're losing your freedom because you're required to do something. I mean, take your pick, because
Right.
nobody. It's like jury duty, mandatory. Who wants that?
Well,
Nobody.
I did put it on the front because I do want people to argue with me, but I know I'm right here because I believe in exception. I don't think you get to exceptional without being an exception, right? I believe in that. But here is the thing. I can find no way around it, especially in video captioning.
So let's talk about Tracy. Set up the problem. What's happening that people may not realize?
So whether you choose to or like it or not, you are participating in the transcription of every piece of content you put out there on the internet, whether it's happening in social media, Facebook, Twitter, X,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, they're all doing it and it's in their terms and conditions. They are allowed to transcribe any piece of content, especially video, that you put up there. They're allowed to add closed captioning. I had air quotes for those of you who are not watching a video. Closed captioning, which is supposed to help, the hearing impaired, but that's not what we all use it for. We know darn well so many of us watch videos and never turn the sound on.
Well,
Um,
yeah, because I'm having to sit in some boring thing somewhere, and it's like, all right, I got to be here, but let me do something else. And you've got the sound off on your phone, so you need those captions to know what people are saying, unless you read lips, and I don't.
well, so those of us lucky with a lot of hair covering our ears, we can stick our earbuds in and nobody knows. However, you cannot get away with that, Tom. The
Yeah,
lack of
don't
hair
have
is
much
just,
hair.
yeah.
This is like the longest my hair gets. I'm getting it cut tomorrow.
Okay. Well, anyway, the whole point to this is that you're voluntarily, is what they say, agreeing to having every word you put out there in any media type transcribed and captioned. However, it's not voluntary because your choice is you don't get to put it on LinkedIn, you don't get to put it on X, you don't get to put it in Apple, and you don't get to put it on YouTube. That's your choice. Your choice is to not put content out there or agree to the transcription process.
And honestly, this is one of those things that, I mean, if you read an article about it when Apple started transcribing every podcast, you might have heard about it, but most people aren't even going to realize it's happening. They're not going to pay attention. They have to agree to this huge long list of terms and conditions in order to sign up and register their show on Apple. And this is true of Spotify. It's true of every app. So I'm not picking on Apple here. I'm an Apple listener. I use Apple. But you you have to check, you scroll down to the bottom of these terms and conditions and check a box or you can't do it. Who reads
Right.
them? Nobody reads them. I don't read them. Nobody has the time to read them. Are you kidding me? I mean, it would take, probably, at least 20 minutes to half an hour to actually read the whole thing, let alone understand it. But in those terms and conditions, we are giving up some of our rights in order to participate in the platform, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
And I think most of us accept that.
Well, SoundCloud just got a big backlash. It was in, if those of you get our AI newsletter and are interested in AI topics, if you clicked on it, you might have gotten this SoundCloud article. But I have a Flipboard called Podcaster Insights. You can find my name or find the Flipboard. We always have links to that. I think there's links to that well, we'll put it in this blog post. How about
Put
that?
in this
There'll be
blog
links.
post, and it should be in our newsletter. Tracy, are you telling me the Flipboard that I get alerts from you several times a week, if not every day, where Tracy flipped this story into Podcaster Insights? That's not just for you and me. Anybody can access that.
Yeah, the one that says Podcaster Insight, there's one that's privately ours that I only
Okay.
flip to you. Yes.
Okay. But I'm
There's
hearing that there's a public version, and I guess I didn't realize that.
No, the Podcaster Insights is a public version. There is
Okay.
AI for Business. That's also a public version. There's a design one that I use that is a public version. There's one for the most important conversations, which is another podcast that is on our platform and that we are sponsoring their organization. So I participate in that one as well. Bespoke Design, I think, is the one that is called
So
for my
if you
design.
get the
So
Flipboard app, though, you can follow
magazines
these.
and you can get them right when I flip them, right? Just like you do. But anyway, I flipped this, I don't know, it was quite a while ago, maybe 2 weeks ago or something like that. But it was SoundCloud faces backlash after adding an AI training clause in its user terms. So this is not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about the debate about whether or not the user terms are fair or they're scraping your content over at Reddit or X and Meta's using your content whether you like it or not and they're informing their AI LLM, their large language model training purposes or not, what the copyright office is doing. I've flipped a ton of those articles lately because copyrights and authors are losing left and right.
That's
But yeah,
subject for another day. Yes.
subject for another day. But here's the issue, they have a right and they are telling you they're going to do it for captioning purposes and is to transcribe everything that you say.
And actually, just on its surface, most of us content creators, podcasters, videocasters are not only okay with that, they think, yeah, that's a good thing. It's being transcribed so people can read what I'm saying, and that's why would we object to that?
Well, I'm going to tell you why.
I bet you
Because it
will.
makes you have to edit your captions or have it be brand damaging.
And this is sort of the curtain we're pulling back on the wizard here, okay, folks? This is the real issue. Just want to put a little point of emphasis on this because it's going to transcribe it whether you want it to or not. Don't you want what you say to be accurately represented in these captions? I do. Don't you, Tracy? I mean, think
Yeah.
of all the things just within Feed Your Brand. And look, every show has some of these things. My last name, your last name, Tracy, is spelled with two Z's. It will never transcribe that into two Z's because the only word in the dictionary it knows of that sounds like when we say hazard is spelled with one Z and it means something different.
Right. So
Potatize as a brand, right?
Potted Ties is not even spelled right in our own Zoom portal. And I have reported it, complained, done everything they've told me to do to try to get it accurate, and it's still wrong.
You mean that in Zoom's own transcriptions? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
when we get our
Yes.
summary back for our own company, it spells Potted Ties wrong.
Right.
And they
Um,
know who we are. Like I've registered it. I did everything I was supposed to. Happens all the time. The accuracy of specifically video transcription services varies differently depending on what you use. But and some claim 95% of accuracy in ideal conditions. That means that the sound is perfect. You speak perfectly clearly. You don't blur any words. You don't mumble,
you
which
don't
never
have an
happens.
accent.
Yeah, none of those things
That
actually.
sounds
So
like a rosy scenario to me.
yeah, it's like in an isolation where an AI is the one speaking, I can do 95% accuracy. That might be it. But it's 80 to 90% is the general accepted terminology. And so even if we said 90%, and we were really generous with how good transcription has gotten over the years. And it used to be, I mean, when we first started podcasting, it was probably like 70%,
If that, I
if
agree.
that.
But it has improved, and that's great.
It has improved, yep. And so I'm going to say, we're going to, for the sake of argument, we're going to be really generous so that we don't have all the AI transcription services sending me emails going, ours is better, use ours, because I don't want your emails. I will not switch because we have our own. So, like, doesn't matter. But 90% accuracy. So that last 10%, people are like, that's good enough. 10%, it's good enough. Is it? That 10%, Tom and I would call it last mile delivery. And if you're in an e-commerce world, if you're in any kind of delivery, if it doesn't make it to your front porch, if it doesn't make to your doorstep, you didn't deliver it.
Errors in that last mile are critical, and errors in the last 10%, heck, even the last 2% of a transcription are critical. It's the difference between the right things being shared with viewers, with listeners, with searches, either getting people to you or not, and with people finding you in their searches
Right.
or
And
not.
so here's where I say the transcription improvement and because the transcription in Apple is slightly separated, right? Like it's not transcribing it right as you're listening to it. And if you're going to a podcast player app, for most part, you're listening. So this is why we've never brought this up to being, and that's why the title here is mandatory video caption editing, not mandatory podcast caption editing, right? Like that's why it doesn't say that. I do think you should do it too for purposes of correctness of being found for podcasts, but it is absolutely more critical on a video platform. And so if your podcast is appearing in any video format at all, including being transcribed by Amazon Music over into a video, then you need to have the captions corrected. You need to have your transcript corrected because it means that when somebody turns off the sound, like I told you, and just reads those captions, which so many of us do on YouTube, so many of us do with videos in general, then you are seeing productize spelt wrong, hazard spelt wrong, your company, your products, and many times your industry terms, the things you're talking about that are critically important to your industry, especially when they're new and something that, like when we used to talk about 3D printing things, they were terminology that most transcription systems, most Google hadn't even seen before, right? So if they hadn't seen it before, they don't know what to predict it to be. And so it doesn't work in that 10%. Those are the things that fall apart. The things that are actually the most critical to the perspective and your brand and business. Those are the things in that last 10%, and as Tom and I call it, the last mile. And if you don't take the time to caption them properly, to correct them, then
You're
you're
just going to
not.
lose.
You're just going to lose. You're not going to be found. And when you are found, people are going to be like, "Oh, how did I spell podetize? Oh, I don't get it." Because if you understood that it was podcast and monetize stuck together, then you would spell it right. But how many times do we say that and we just say the word, and I've had poetize, Potazize. I've had recently. I don't know how that one came about. I've had Podotize. Like it's
And the
always
thing
wrong.
is, this is a reality of AI transcription. It's not really a fault of the system because, you know, how can you fault programming for not knowing something that it's never been taught? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And if this is really in conflict with brands in particular, because in order to get a registered trademark with the Patent and Trademark Office, which I'm proud to say Podetize is a registered trademark, you need, if you use common words and expressions, it's very hard to get a trademark. Okay, very hard. Let's take the rideshare companies of Lyft and Uber. Okay, I remember when I first heard that this thing called Uber, I'm like, "What is Uber?" It's like, it's a what? It's a rideshare. It
But Uber's a
replaces taxis.
word. Keep
I
that in
know
mind, right?
Uber is a word, which, but in the context of how they were using it, it was unusual, and they got that. But take Lyft. Hey, I need a lift. Makes much more sense to me. But they spell it differently, Lyft instead of Lift. And no transcription software is ever going to get that right. So for brand consistency, brand identity, continuity, and amplification, you have got, if Lyft has a podcast or anybody's talking about Lyft in any podcast, it's always going to be spelled wrong unless somebody involved who cares is going to go in and correct that spelling. And you can eventually train and teach an AI to do it right. But
So strategy here. If you're competing against Lyft, don't correct it.
never.
Never correct your competitors' misspellings of their name, right? Why do it? We don't do it. So,
No.
like, why do it? Correct your names, but don't correct theirs. So, here are the three things. There are three things in video editing, captioning. I'm not suggesting you spend hours editing like we do, like our staff does, like all of that. I'm not suggesting that at all. I am suggesting you fix three things every time you get your video completed, and you can check the SRT, which is the timing. That's what they call it in YouTube. You can check the SRT timing transcript, and
And
it
you can
comes out to the
edit that.
side, and you
You
can
can
edit it
edit it.
right in there. You could
Yep.
just correct it, and it'll correct it and put it on in. You're not editing it in line. You're editing it kind of on the side. Like you just be editing text, right? It's super simple. You can
Yep.
do that with a short or a full length video, doesn't matter. Just edit it that way. And most editing softwares work the same way. They're just configurations slightly different. Some of them you do actually edit on screen. So the three things: proper names, the name of your guest, your
Oh,
name, the name of your
so
company.
critical. Your guest names. I mean, a lot of you podcasters have guests every episode or a lot of episodes. You need to respect that guest and show them you care. Not only that, I can't even tell. And I know, I'm sorry, I'm interjecting here, Tracy. I want to get back to the three things, but this is super, super critical because all of our podetized customers who we do production for, and I'm mentioning them because we know their shows the deepest and we know what they rank on their websites for keyword terms from their blogs and their episodes. They rank on their guest names and oftentimes much higher in Google search than their guests actually rank on their own names. So this is about people finding you and your show? Spell your guest name correctly.
So, yeah. So, proper names. Think of it that way. Anything that's supposed to be capitalized, right? Just fix it. Don't fix your competitors. Just let them fall apart. There.
Yeah.
Don't bother. No need. Number two, you want to fix any product name. So, like if you call something a specific name, even if it's not like the proper name, like we have a showcaster player and it's not ER at the end, it's showcast capital R. And so we would want to fix that because it's a proper name and it's our
It's a
product.
brand. Yeah.
Right. But if they were spelling some other part of the product, so in real estate, I've used this example before, they have something called 2-to-1 conversions. The number 2, TO, the number 1 conversions. And you might have a product, a mortgage product or a flip product or something product that utilizes that. And that's not the name of the product, but it's what it is
Or what it does.
or
Yeah.
what it does. You definitely want to fix those things because you don't want something that somebody would be searching for to be wrong. Some kind of terminology that has to do with your products or services that you're selling.
Well, share what 221 would translate to, Tracy,
Oh, it's
in
2-1, the
the
numbers, right?
numerical. It would be
221.
221 instead of a 2-to-1 offer or a 2-to-1 benefit.
Right.
Like buy one get one free or whatever might be a better way to say it and have it actually be properly automatically transcribed. But that's not the term that's used a lot of the time.
Exactly. So we're picking all proper names and then anything that is kind of a name, but it's more like terms and names, but anything that has to do with products and services. So those are the two major things that we're doing. The third is make sure that you know your keywords. So if you're trying to rank on video editing, podcast editing, and any of those words are wrong because they're more complex, like let's say you're in an industry like in 3D printing, we would have had stuff like CAD CAM. Did it get it right? Did it spell it in a way? Did it show it in a way that was more the way you wanted to search for it? So 3D printing used to be a really common term. And so here's the one I want to correct for everybody. So we would spell it 3 lowercase d space printing. We would do 3-D printing, 3 capital D printing, 3D dash printing. Like we would do all those different ways to go through it. So if that's what's happening and you know that's going on in your search terms, make sure you're correcting throughout that captioning for the various ways that people might spell it, because then it makes it more searchable in the future. So not only is this considered search engine optimization, but I want you to consider this as AI optimization. Because what if you're really on SoundCloud and SoundCloud's terms and conditions is really Apple's terms and conditions, is really Facebook's terms and conditions. And the next thing you know, they're actually absorbing everything you have put in there into their training module. And then one day it becomes their search module. Now there's no way to find you. There's no way to give you credit because your name's spelled wrong. There's no way to give you credit because you're not associated with the way that they spell the industry term. Correcting these now will make sure that they're correct no matter what happens to the model in the future, so that when you participate in that future economy, that you're identified correctly, that everything comes back to you. They don't care if they spell the stuff wrong because they don't want to give you credit. So
right.
they're not going to fix it for you. It is not going to improve anytime soon. They don't care. In fact, it probably means less lawsuits for them, because if they can't identify your name associated with the content, then they didn't steal your content. So don't let them off the hook. Make sure that you're getting credit where credit is due, and make sure that you are treating these video captions as an essential part of your brand. That's why it's mandatory. It's how you represent yourself. And you wouldn't want a typo on the homepage of your website.
You shouldn't ever allow anything like that. And these are things you're in control of. I mean, it's your social platform, it's your YouTube channel, it's your content. That's what we're talking about. We're not asking you to go police anybody else's stuff. Nobody has time for that. Just your own.
Right. But if you were a guest on someone's show, you can ask them to edit it. And you should. So if that happened, if you were a guest and your name was spelled wrong, go ask them. Go ask the host to do that. So recap. Number one, proper names, your company, your names, your guest names. Number two, products and services, terms of any kind. And number three, your keywords that you need to be known and associated for.
Those important keyword phrases, expressions, search terms, things you want to be known for, and things you want to be found for.
Right. Because if they're spelling that wrong and your name is wrong, there's no association. So if one of those two things isn't right, even if you get your name right, but you don't get what you want to be known for corrected, it doesn't work. It falls apart.
You know, it's a pretty simple thing, Tracy, that I'm sure very few people listening to this podcast or watching this video have really thought about. And that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying there's any kind of character flaw. I mean, why would you until you know? But it is, on the one hand, pretty simple, and on the other hand, so critically important. It makes a difference between you being found or not. And you know, I have appointments every week being booked on my calendar by people that are finding Podetize through an AI search. You know, a lot of internet searches and a lot of things coming from the blogs on our website, which is sort of again, proof of the organic content marketing of podcasting, the opportunity we all have. But the AI search has been coming more and more and more. And fortunately, the AI will learn and can be trained. And so, but you've got to feed it with the right information to begin with.
And you
And
have to
that's
be
what this is
willing
about.
to point out it's wrong. So, like, this is when
Yes.
we accept this, it becomes pervasive. So, like, just before this call, I received a summary from I noticed in my email the summary that I did for this call that became our YouTube shorts that come out prior to the call, prior to our live. And I looked at the summary and it spelled Podetize wrong. And that was Zoom's summary. It wasn't what I used when I published this actually, but it was Zoom's summary. So it had a little like, is this accurate? And I clicked the down arrow and the thumbs down and I said no. And it asked me why. And I said, because you spelled my company name wrong and I pay the bills. That company name pays your bills, Zoom. So you should get that right. Like, that's not unreasonable for me to expect that you get that right. But what they haven't done, and that's the problem here, is that they haven't heard me say it. They see it in writing, but they haven't heard what it sounds like. They don't know how to pronounce it. And so many of these newer systems, like when I do it with my we decided to call her Tracy too, my clone, and it's TOO. So it's like Tracy also. So Tracy 2 and Tracy 2 has pronunciation capability. So I can tell her how I say something and then how it's spelled. That's what's needed next in many of these, but they are either voice systems or speech systems, and they're not both. And that's what they haven't connected the two things completely yet. They're going to get there. I believe that some of these things we'll be able to stop doing. Like, wouldn't it be great if YouTube was smart enough to know for the after the 10th time I changed my name in the portal in their studio that it stops doing it? But
Should
it's not
learn. I
there yet.
can't trust that it does yet. You know, and really this goes back to one of the fundamentals of Feed Your Brand. And we started this podcast, and I remember, and I haven't, have to admit, I have to re-listen to our podcast intro. I know it's changed a few times over the years, but originally it talked about how for all of us podcasters, we're trying to stand out in a noisy or crowded digital world. And that's what this is about. You can be a part of the noise, a part of the digital ocean that's out there of information, or you can stand out and be a crest of one of the waves on that ocean. And that's really what we're talking about here. That the difference is being found, being heard by more people. And this is something that didn't exist even 5 years ago in podcasting. It may have on YouTube, and it's probably been there for a long time on YouTube in terms of captions of videos. But podcasting is very, very new, and it's becoming more important. And it's just you want to be found, care, and put a little time into correcting those things.
Exactly. Well, like I said at the beginning of this, you're either going to use the tools or you're going to get used by the tool. Make it, and we have chosen, and you spend a lot of time and energy on your show. And if you're going to spend that much time and energy, take it the last mile, cross the finish line. Do what's needed to get to the goal that you wanted, which was being seen, heard, and found. Because the reward is on the other side of the finish line.
That is true. You want the reward, the full reward, you've got to cross that line. I
Well,
love it.
there's no consolation prize for not crossing the line. So you don't even get that, whether we agree about those things or not for our kids, but you got to cross the finish line. You got to actually finish. So that's what we're talking about here. Now, Tom and I are about making this happen for you in any way, shape, or form. And so every time we figure out a system, we're sharing it with you. We're telling you the fastest, best way. And so this is why I'm saying to you, I don't think you need to change anything else about. Don't edit the rest of the transcript. Don't delete an and ah. Don't correct anything else you said. Don't worry about it. Just do those three things and it'll get you across the finish line. You don't need to spend more time doing it because most of your audience can't spell. Most of your audience isn't totally reading with accuracy. They're passively reading, like it's passing fast through it. So hopefully they're listening and watching the captions at the same time. So that word "potatize," Tracy Hazard, Tom Hazard, becomes a reinforcement of the name and how it's spelled, the name and how it's
Well,
spelled.
and
And
if you
that's what you
don't
want.
and if you don't correct it, it's tapping the side of your brain every time you're passively watching and potatize up there spelled wrong. Potatize, potatize, potatize. There's a subconscious that's picking that up, but when you go search on it, you're going to search the wrong spelling if you don't correct that. Same thing with your name. It's interesting, Tracy. I want everybody to understand one more thing about this. This is a race all of us can win. Okay. You said something that reminded me of a cliche somebody I used to work with used to say all the time, and I really didn't agree with it. They basically said, if you come in second place, you're the first loser, is the way they said it. And they were trying to reinforce, you always want to be first. You got to try to be first. I don't look, there are things in life and business that may be that way, but I don't always believe that. In this case, I do mean it. This is a race we can all win. This isn't about me competing against you or doing it better than you. No, we can all make this accurate for our own show and benefit from it. It's not a competition where, you got to do this or, or somebody's going to get there before you. It doesn't matter. You can all get there. So do it.
Uh, but the house always wins. So I do want to say that. And that's why none of these tools are made to to help you win. You have to use them to help yourself win, to
That's
get
true.
yourself across the finish line. The house is not there to really help you. The house is there to make money, especially YouTube. YouTube is there
And
to to put as many ads. They do not care how crappy the content is.
and yes, they're doing the minimum that they need to provide a service, meaning that caption for when you don't have your sound on or for those that are hearing impaired, they're doing the minimum. They're not trying to make it, YouTube isn't going to get millions of more viewers just because they have the best captions compared to Vimeo or something. I mean, they're already established. They're the big ones. So they're going to do the minimum. They're going to do what they need to and nothing more. So
Well,
it
see, you said it right there. The point of YouTube is to keep you watching so that they make as much ad dollars as possible. And so if the point at which you then go into to your child's concert and you have to stop listening to the video and you turn it off because there is no caption, then it became unnecessary. It became necessary for YouTube to create a captioning process. They didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart for the hearing impaired. They did it so that you wouldn't stop watching when you got to a space where you couldn't hear. You couldn't be listening anymore. That's it.
good point.
But when it flips into that, you need it to work because you built the content. Okay, I think we've like hammered everyone on this. And so I'm sorry to use the word mandatory. I
I think,
hate that I
yeah.
had to use it, but this is an absolute mandatory situation. Is it mandatory for you to use it on the podcast side? I'm going to stop short of saying absolutely mandatory, but it could switch on a dime at where Apple truly is using every word you say in a forward facing model. Like they could finally fix the darn search in Apple Podcasts to the better. Right? Right. You and I know it's the dumbest search possible. It knows nothing.
Yeah.
But they could turn it on where it's then searching through those transcripts. And now you are being harmed because you didn't take the time to correct them now. So
I
that's
agree.
why I'm
Less
not saying
less
mandatory
less
for
critical
Apple.
today in mid 2025 to do this in the podcast transcripts and listening app because not all listening apps have to do the transcripts anyway. Apple started doing it automatically. I think several months ago, maybe the beginning of the year, maybe it was late last year, but it's
It
not
was
that
late
long
last
ago.
year.
It's not even been a year yet.
Yeah.
And certainly YouTube's been doing it forever, and I agree. It's more important on YouTube if you're putting your podcast out as a video cast. But even if you're syndicating your show through YouTube now to YouTube Music and the podcast playlist, it's converting your audio to video and it's creating that, captions for that video in YouTube. So even if you're not putting actual video up there, but you are putting your content there, same thing applies on YouTube. But I agree with you, Tracy. There's going to come a point at which this is more critical in podcasting, and those of us that have made those corrections are going to benefit significantly. So, anyway, I know you only have so much time, and maybe some of you podcasters is all you can do to record your content and upload it and publish it, and still do that if that's all you can do. But you're leaving opportunity on the table.
So hope you like the sort of new model we're working on here, where we're giving you practical application and the reason why. Because I hate it when somebody tells me something's mandatory, but then doesn't really give me a reason that feels valid. Because if you're going to decide to be the exception to the rule, you have to know what you're leaving on the table, what you're weighing that against, right? So you say I'm exceptional and I don't need that because I speak perfectly and it's getting me at 95%. And that last 5% doesn't matter. Okay, that's your choice. Make that choice, but know what you're
Yeah, at
giving
least you
up when you
know
make
the
that
rules.
choice.
It's hard to play the game if you don't know the rules, and not to make light of it because I know this isn't a game for most of you, but you got to know what the rules are if you're gonna make the best of it or make that informed decision, and that's what we're here to help provide you that information. All right. So you're going to find all the details and some of the links to things that we were talking about and Tracy was mentioning earlier on the blog post for this episode at podcastersunited.org. So go there and check it out. And while you're there, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can get that. It's an AI-driven newsletter, provides you a lot of great information, and it will tailor it to your needs the more you interact with it, because that's what it does, because it's AI-driven. Very cool. Um, and then you get more support, help you get towards your goals. So, all right. Thank you all for tuning into this, and we will see you next time on Feed Your Brand. All right, live stream, we're signing off. And if you were got our newsletter, you'd be invited to be in Zoom with us and could ask questions.